I've always loved solitude. When I moved into a quaint little house in the countryside, miles away from the bustling city, I thought I had found my own slice of peace. The house was charming, a modest, single-story structure surrounded by towering trees and vast fields. The nearest neighbor was over a mile away, and at first I relished the quiet. But peace can turn into isolation, and isolation has its own kind of terror. My first week was uneventful. The days were serene, filled with birdsong and the rustling of leaves in the wind. But it was the nights that felt different. There was a peculiar kind of stillness after dark, a silence so complete that every creak of the house felt amplified. I chalked it up to adjusting to a new environment, until the phone calls began. It was late, around 11 p.m., when my landline rang for the first time. I hadn't even given the number to anyone yet. Confused, I picked up. "Hello?" I asked. Silence. I repeated, "Hello? Who is this?" Still nothing, just a faint crackling on the other end. I hung up, assuming it was a wrong number. The next night it happened again. Same time, same silence. I felt a prickle of unease crawl up my spine. There was no reason for it, but the quiet at the other end of the line felt intentional, like someone was listening. I told myself it was probably just a glitch or a prank, but deep down, I wasn't convinced. By the third night, my nerves were already fraying. I tried to focus on a book, but when the phone rang at precisely 11 p.m., I froze. My heartbeat quickened. I forced myself to answer. "Who is this?" I demanded. Silence. Then, just as I was about to hang up, a soft sound. Breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing. My stomach turned. "Stop calling me!" I shouted before slamming the phone down. I sat there, my hands trembling. Minutes passed. I stared at the phone, half expecting it to ring again, but it didn't. Not that night. The following evening, I decided to stay up late, determined to catch the caller. When the phone rang, I answered immediately. "I'm calling the police," I said firmly. This time, a voice, a whisper so faint I could barely make out the words. "I see you." I felt the blood drain from my face. My eyes darted to the windows. The curtains were drawn, but I suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable. "Who are you?" I whispered. The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every gust of wind made my heart race. When dawn finally broke, I called the phone company. They assured me they would investigate, but warned it might take a few days. I wasn't satisfied, so I contacted the local police. An officer came out to take a report, but there wasn't much they could do. "Probably just a prank," he said with a shrug. "It happens." But the calls didn't stop. Each night, the whispering grew more disturbing. He knew things. Details he shouldn't have been able to know. What I was wearing, what I was doing. "Red sweater," he whispered one night. "You like tea before bed, don't you?" I felt trapped. I double-checked every lock, every window. I even bought new security lights, but no matter what I did, the calls kept coming. Then, one night, something changed. It was nearly midnight when the phone rang again. I had stopped answering by this point, but something compelled me to pick up. "Leave me alone," I screamed. This time, the voice chuckled, a low, guttural sound that sent shivers down my spine. "You can't lock me out," he whispered. "I'm already inside." My breath caught in my throat. Panic surged through me as I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and slowly backed into the corner of the living room. My eyes scanned every shadow, every dark corner. "Where are you?" I whispered. Silence. I called the police again, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. They searched the entire house, checked every room, every closet. They found nothing. "No signs of forced entry," one of them said. "Are you sure you're not imagining things?" I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. After they left, I sat in my living room, knife still in hand, too afraid to sleep. It wasn't until near dawn that exhaustion finally overtook me. The next day, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A small, almost imperceptible crack along the floorboards in the hallway. Curiosity and fear drove me to investigate. I pried up the boards, my heart pounding in my chest. Beneath the floor was a hidden crawl space. My hands trembled as I lifted the cover. A foul smell wafted up, making me gag. I peered into the darkness and saw something that made my blood run cold. A mattress, empty food wrappers, clothes. Someone had been living under my house. But the worst part? There was a small, disconnected landline phone. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. The calls had been coming from inside my own home. As I backed away, my foot hit something solid. I turned and screamed. A man was standing in the hallway, filthy and gaunt, his eyes wild with madness. He smiled, revealing yellowed teeth. "I told you," he whispered. "I've always been here." I don't remember much after that. Somehow I managed to run, my screams echoing through the night. The police found me outside, hysterical. When they searched the house again, the man was gone. They never found him. I moved out the next day. I haven't gone back. But sometimes, even now, I wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I hear the phone ringing. I remember that weekend vividly. My parents had gone out of town, leaving me home alone for the first time. I was 16, old enough to handle myself, and thrilled at the prospect of having the house to myself. It was a typical suburban home, cozy and familiar, with a large backyard and a basement we rarely used. I settled in for the night with snacks, video games, and a marathon of horror movies. Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have tempted fate. The first noise came around 9 p.m. It was faint, just a soft thud from the basement. I paused my game, listening intently. The basement door was at the end of a short hallway, always locked unless my dad needed to get something from storage. I brushed it off as the house settling and went back to my game. An hour later, I heard it again. This time it was louder, a dragging sound like something heavy being moved across the floor. My heart skipped a beat. I muted the TV and stared at the basement door. The lock was in place, just as I had left it. Maybe it was my imagination, or maybe I was just spooked from the movies. I laughed nervously and told myself to relax. But the noises didn't stop. By 11 p.m., they had grown louder and more distinct. I heard a series of rhythmic knocks, followed by a soft, almost human whisper. My stomach twisted in knots. I approached the door slowly, my bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. I pressed my ear to the door, straining to hear. A voice, faint, distorted, pulled me out. I stumbled back, heart hammering. My first instinct was to run out of the house, but my pride kept me rooted. It had to be a prank. Maybe someone was messing with me. But how? The door was locked from the outside. I decided to check the lock. The metal latch was loose. I examined it closely, my fingers trembling. The screws had been tampered with. From the inside, a chill ran down my spine. I grabbed a kitchen knife and my phone. Dialing 911 seemed premature, but I kept my finger hovering over the call button. I took a deep breath and opened the basement door. Darkness greeted me. The bare wooden stairs creaked under my weight as I descended. The air was thick, stale, and cold. I felt every nerve in my body on edge. My eyes adjusted slowly to the dim light filtering in from a small, dirty basement window. The noises had stopped. I scanned the room. Old boxes, holiday decorations, and forgotten furniture were scattered around. Everything seemed undisturbed, until I noticed a small, barely visible door at the far end of the basement. A door I had never seen before. My pulse quickened. The door was slightly ajar. I swallowed hard and took a step closer. The air grew colder. I could smell damp earth and something else, something foul. My hand tightened around the knife as I pushed the door open. The room beyond was small, no more than a cramped crawl space. It reeked of mildew and rot. In the corner was a makeshift bed, an old stained mattress covered with a tattered blanket. Empty food wrappers littered the floor, and, scrawled on the walls, were strange, jagged symbols. my eyes landed on something that made my blood run cold. A stack of Polaroid photos. I picked one up with trembling fingers. It was a picture of my house. Another showed the living room, then the kitchen. The last one was of me, sitting on the couch, playing video games. My hands started to shake uncontrollably. A sound behind me. I spun around, knife raised. A figure stood in the shadows. Gaunt, with sunken eyes and a twisted smile, he stepped forward. His clothes were filthy, his skin pale and stretched tight over sharp bones. "You shouldn't have come down here," he whispered. Panic surged through me. I lunged forward, slashing wildly with the knife. He moved faster than I expected, grabbing my wrist with a grip like iron. His breath was rancid, his eyes filled with a madness I couldn't comprehend. I kicked, struggled, and finally broke free. I bolted up the stairs, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out all other sounds. Behind me, I heard his footsteps, quick and heavy. I slammed the basement door shut and locked it, my chest heaving. The knife was still in my hand, my knuckles white from gripping it so tightly. The house was silent, but I knew he was there, just on the other side of the door. I called 911. My voice was frantic as I explained the situation. The dispatcher assured me officers were on the way. Minutes felt like hours as I stood with my back against the door, every creak and groan of the house sending fresh waves of terror through me. When the police arrived, they searched the entire house and the basement. They found the crawl space, they found the photos, but they didn't find him. "Are you sure you saw someone?" one officer asked, his brow furrowed. "Yes," I whispered. "He was here. He was right here." They changed the locks, sealed the crawl space, and assured me I was safe, but I never felt safe again. I moved out shortly after. I couldn't stay in that house, not after what happened. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the creak of floorboards or a soft whispering voice in my dreams. And I wonder if he's still there, waiting for the next time someone leaves the basement door unlocked. It was a quiet evening in a suburban neighborhood, one of those crisp autumn evenings where the air feels cool against the skin and the streetlights flicker on one by one as the night falls. The neighborhood was peaceful, almost eerily so, with only the sounds of distant dogs barking and the hum of a passing car. It was the kind of place where nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary, where people felt safe. And in that safety, a single father named Daniel was preparing to leave his home for a quick errand. Daniel was a dedicated father to his 10-year-old daughter Emily. They shared a special bond, one built on years of laughs, shared secrets, and comfort. Daniel was a busy man, always running around for work, but he made sure to carve out time for his daughter. That evening, as he put on his jacket and grabbed his keys, Emily sat on the couch in the living room, her face illuminated by the flickering light of the TV. "Hey, Em," Daniel called softly, his voice filled with affection. "I'm heading out to the store. Be good, okay? I won't be long." Emily glanced up at him with a wide grin. "Okay, Daddy, I'm watching cartoons." Daniel smiled and leaned down, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Remember, don't open the door for anyone, even if they say they know me." "I won't, Daddy," she replied innocently, her attention already back on the screen in front of her. Little did Daniel know, as he closed the door behind him and locked it, this would be the last moment of normalcy that night. As Daniel drove off into the growing darkness, Emily settled back into her spot on the couch, her feet tucked underneath her, and a bag of chips in her lap. The cartoons blared in the background, the soft chattering of animated characters filling the quiet house. The wind outside had started to pick up, sending an occasional rustling sound against the windows. Emily, lost in her show, didn't notice it first, but then it happened. The faint tap. It was so soft, so quiet that it could have been the wind. She paused, looking around for the source of the sound. Another tap, this time a little louder, followed by the unmistakable sound of a knock. Emily froze. Her heart skipped a beat. and she glanced towards the window. In the dim light outside, she could make out the vague silhouette of a figure standing just beyond the glass. It was too dark to see much, but the person was there, and they were knocking. Her small brow furrowed in confusion. She didn't recognize the person. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Never open the door for strangers. But this person wasn't at the door. They were at the window. The figure knocked again, this time with a deliberate rhythm, soft and patient. Emily's instinct told her something wasn't right. Still, couldn't help but feel a strange curiosity. "Hey there, sweetie." The voice came through the glass, soft and soothing, like the kind of voice you'd hear from a friendly neighbor. "I'm a friend of your father. Can you open the window for me? I just need to talk to you." Emily stared at the figure, her heart racing. Something about the man felt off. He was too still, too calm, and his voice, though gentle, held a certain tension beneath it. She hesitated. "Come on, sweetie," the man coaxed. "Your dad and I go way back. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if you let me in." But Emily had been taught better than to trust a stranger, even if they claimed to know her father. She didn't move from her spot. Her little fingers gripped the edge of the couch as her mind raced, torn between curiosity and caution. The man at the window seemed to sense her hesitation. He